He's going.
Well, here comes a serious subject, so get ready.
Right.
They're going to fry you, too.
You frying me, man.
Y'all ready for some news?
No, they ain't doing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time with the good news, the bad news, and the other shit. Yeah, the good news, the bad news, the other shit, and I'm not exactly sure which one it is this morning because I know how sensitive, but that's the whole point of these things. We don't re-report. We engage in the discussions that you guys are engaging in, and that's why we're talking about them. So today, let's start off the news, the good news, the bad news, and the other shit, and we're going to get to the Trump update, but first let's start out with this. Because this is where it actually seems to be hurting the most. Leaving Neverland. I'm not going to call it a documentary, but I guess the expose on Michael Jackson has caused a lot of feedback in social media and in media in general. Certainly more so in the Facebook world, where it sparks a number of conversations and things like the ongoing R. Kelly situation,
right,
which we're not including as part of this really discussion, but these kind of things are coming up. Journey Smollett. Some people see it as an attack, Vic, of black men.
Jesse.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Jesse Smollett, not Journey.
Just say I'm just.
Excuse me, Journey.
Yeah, no,
she's
don't
a sweetheart.
Do it, man.
Jesse Smollett. And even though, so these controversies that are going on, so there's a lot. Some folks say, Vic, that there's an assault on black men. Some people even throw in the likes of Bill Cosby into that, and people are really heated on on all sides of this issue. I was amazed at the backlash against Oprah, who did the after leaving Neverland. She had the conversation with the gentleman. And I know that you took part. At least observed that.
Hey, look. I'm not. First of all, I'm not. I have as much information as everybody else except those who are participants, right? So, the question I posed. I said, hey, folks, let me just look at it this way. If you had to have someone present the platform, argument, or whatever, just to do it, who better would have been better than Oprah? Forget the idea that you're having a backlash. But if you had to have somebody, I asked the question. I said, who would best be the objective voice of trying to facilitate and digest the information? I couldn't even get to that answer, man. So,
well, because some people would say that by her doing that, she's legitimizing their accusations. That's actually what she's saying by doing that, by engaging in that, by Oprah sitting down with him, which gets back to this other issue again.
Right.
So first of all, since you're right there, how did you feel like? Did you feel that that was part of what she was doing?
No. And let me say this. What it reminds me of is going back to stories where there was a time, and hey, look, I am African American. I got to say this. There was a time where there was no need to bring him to court. He's guilty. He's a black man. That was it. No voice. Don't even get to the jury. Don't get to the room. And I said, so you have to be very careful to me when you're going like, look, you may not like what you're going to hear, but there's always another side. And for me, Mario, I do like this. How many are willing to sit back and bet all their savings, their money, their home on the bet that, let's just use Michael Jackson, not to get into anyone else or R. Kelly. Let's just put all your money down that you will guarantee he's innocent. Guarantee. Raise your hands.
And innocent of what? My thing is, personally, everyone has different standards. The point I made in terms of his guilt or innocence in terms of sexual abuse, I tell everyone I have no choice but to view him in the same way I view every circumstance as a 30-year board-certified pediatrician, especially a hospitalist, a person who worked in the emergency room, at least a third of my time that I was at the hospital. Because of that, I have specific requirements in terms of myself for evaluating situations. So I don't feel like I have the luxury of some of the people out there who are in the audience to go blind to what is obvious. And I said that whether or not you are a Michael Jackson fan and whether or not you believe he had sex with these children or not, he is at least guilty of extremely inappropriate behavior to the degree that I would have reported him immediately. It wouldn't even have crossed my mind. A grown man sleeping with children, I would have filed a Children Protective Services report just on the basis of that alone. Just on the basis of that alone. You need to explain that. If you're a grown man having sleepovers with children, you need to be forced to explain that. I'm sorry, I'm an emergency pediatrician. There are obvious things that you just cannot excuse. And for the people out there who want to excuse it, I understand, because I understand what happens is that there are many of us who have dark sides, but we do good things. You know, so when you interact with us when we're doing our good things, your memories of us are those are good things. You know, and sometimes the worst of us still have sides that are wonderful. Hitler loved his dogs. Okay? So that doesn't make any difference. To believe that Michael Jackson was capable of great kindness, I don't have a conflict with that at all. I view him as a conflicted person at odds with his upbringing and his own sexuality, which was also very much ingrained with his obvious personality disorders in terms of being able to interact socially. He had some things that to a professional would seem fairly obvious. Okay? So, in that point of view, I leave it. I don't know whether or not he actually had sex with these people, but I know that he had every red flag that you can find.
Was it? Let me ask you this, Mario.
It's every red flag.
Was it accepted on a softer level that he spent the night with children in the same room, in the same bed? Is it mutually understood that people said, hey, that was known, no big deal? People kind of generally accepted it. Is that true or false?
Obviously, from watching the Leaving Neverland and listening to the parents, because they specifically addressed that, the parents were caught up. They were seduced in the ways that people are seduced in these things. They're caught up in the fortune, the fantasy, the stardom. They get caught up, and then therefore they make bad decisions. Much in the same way as sometimes the best of us will make bad decisions when confronted with stardom. You know what I'm saying? When confronted with stardom, sometimes we make bad decisions based on that stardom.
I'm asking this question because even before you got to Neverland, there was a settlement, right? Yeah, and so a settlement of some sort, right?
I don't know all the details, but I think there was.
It was a settlement. Now, when there's a settlement, do people settle when they're not guilty?
People settle when they're guilty, when they're not guilty.
Right.
The fact that a settlement exists, to me, doesn't really help me.
Right. I'm only getting to this
in one way or the other.
I'm doing this. What I'm doing is taking the side that, let's just say that by the ignorance and innocence that Michael Jackson had a kind heart, and he basically saying, hey, love kids, love children, the whole thing. Let's just say that they were spending the night in the bed and no sex happened. Would he be guilty if he says, I just hug them and go to sleep? Would he be guilty?
Guilty of what?
That's my question. He's a grown man.
He'd be guilty of inappropriate behavior.
That's
of
all.
hugging.
That's it. And I'm only.
In other words, there's degrees of this. Obviously, there are degrees of this. I would say, as a person who has to deal with, that's enough for me to put you in the system.
Right.
See, in other words, you might not need to register as a sex offender, but maybe you do, but maybe you don't. But at least you need to be in the system having had this incident.
Right.
So if it comes up again,
right,
there's a record of this.
Right.
That's where, to me, because my point is to get you in the system.
Right. Yeah, see, I'm only going at what point where there is a flag, even before it gets to what he's being accused of after leaving Neverland. I said, where's there inappropriate behavior, period, even before this revelation of this show that just came out? And I said...
It looks like, to me, there was inappropriate behavior all over the place.
Right. And we already went into...
In other words, I'm
enablers.
And let me say this again. I'm an emergency room pediatrician. Don't ask me to have a forgiving mentality when it comes to looking for child abuse. I'm expected to be suspicious by nature. But this one is not rocket science,
no,
okay?
No, it's not.
This is obvious. You cannot have grown men having sleepovers with children, period. Whether they're having sex or not having sex, the behavior is inappropriate. The psychology of the individual leading to that behavior is inappropriate and needs investigation and treatment, period. Okay, now whether or not you want to punish them or simply treat them as someone who's ill, that's a different discussion. But the behavior is inappropriate. And so there we go. Now, in terms of the other stuff, the documentary, I don't know. But again, I don't have to know. That's enough.
Right.
That is enough. And you can leave the rest to be discussed. Okay? All right. The Boeing crashes that have happened, you've had 2 crashes. 2. And while the whole world removed these suspicious planes from activity, U.S. was the last. In part, some say because the president spoke up for Boeing because they are a major defense contractor. Why you should be concerned about all of this is really because the way it's being handled. Rather than having a separate agency without political entanglements investigate these kinds of things, we have a situation where, once again, the individuals are, for the most part, policing themselves. Simply incredible in this time. The Boeing crash symbolizes, once again, an example when you look closely, and I don't know about the specifics of the crash. Again, there's a lot being thrown out there about the software incompatibility and changes being there, but you did have 2 planes of the same make crash within, 5 months of each other. And by definition, that should be an investigation as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And you had the U.S. as the last group, too. So I raised this because I want you to be aware. Once again, this is an example where the processes here in the U.S. are being dictated by a big financier.
And there's a relationship in the current administration with one of their own who used to be with Boeing, who heads, I forgot which committee, so I don't want to sit back and misrepresent. But I also say this, because I only have the information that's reported, which may be second to third hand. I know they have it well documented that the pilots the day before experienced the same situation of all of a sudden a dive, multiple dives during the experience, and the backup pilot, this is documented, backup pilot actually, who was just, while they were fighting through this, said, do this, go under here, do this, and it saved them. Okay, good. You hear a lot of pilots, you get to follow a lot of what they call threads of what they said you're supposed to be able to fly. I agree, fly the plane manually. Everybody got that. What was
you need to be able to override and have some kind of a manual system.
Right.
Those of us who deal with technology are very much aware of that.
That's okay, only if all the information has been provided that this is what happens when this happens. And so I got into one thing, that after that happened, that they got off the plane, the pilots, and this pilot who experienced what he didn't report it. So they got representatives going like this. This is, we are not sure why he did not call this up the chain.
And you got to do that.
Dude.
I mean, there's some things, okay, I can imagine if you see flying saucers, maybe then you don't tell administration. But stuff like the plane malfunctioning, that's you telling them that right when it's happening, and don't write to some kind of report process when you land. That's simply amazing. Simply amazing. This is your safety,
right? That's
being handled in such a frivolous manner.
Hey, look at this. How much money is it going to cost them to? When somebody tells you this, it's the MCAS system, MCAS or something like that. If somebody just said, "Oh, hey, we updated the software," do you feel comfortable as a paid customer getting on the plane? If they just sent out a promotion and it's on cable, Mario, and it's going, Boeing, we XXXX, we think of your safety, and on small print underneath they said, recent updates to our system have been approved. That's it. You feel comfortable?
Hell no. Do you? Okay, just if Vic can testify here at Pax Stereo TV, we have 3 broadcasts. I got twin systems right here that are up and ready that just sit there waiting.
Just in case.
Just in case. Twin.
And then sometimes that don't happen.
And there's the third one. So it's like medicine. What you recognize statistically is having one backup doesn't give you 99.9. You need to at least have 2 backups. And that's why statistically when they would make tape backups, they didn't make 1 tape. They would make 2 tapes.
Right. And you know something. Let me tell you, the biggest sign is when you know that it must be an element of truth. Because Boeing is a big company, and if they felt they were being doing an injustice, don't think that their legal team wouldn't be taking this to task to sit back and say, you can't do this, Mr. President. You can't do this. The idea that they're silent and not arguing this point is my ears are going like this. Whoa, I said, they're not even coming to contest this. Ouch. Ouch, man.
And stranger still. And that's again, here we are, Pax Stereo TV, citizen journalists. Remember, not re-reporting. I bring to you those things that I read that catch my attention and make me go, where I'm going, wow, this is really interesting. Here's another one. What Vic is going to be talking about in the new sports segment, the whole university admission scandal involving people applying for position on sports teams that they don't even play. Dr. Dre was recently in the social media talking about his daughter, who he's very proud of, pictured here, that his daughter got into USC all on her own, of which we want to give him applause. Now, it is true that he, along with Jimmy Iovine, isn't that his name? How you pronounce it, Vic? Iovine? Jimmy Iovine? Anyway, they made a $70 million donation to USC back in 2013 for the Jimmy Iovine, or is it Lovine? I don't know if that's, I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Lovine?
Well, anyway, but for the creation of the Jimmy and Andre Young Academy for Arts, Technology, and Business. So they have a business named after them on campus. So I guess she may not totally have got in on her own. So that was pointed out to me. 70 million.
You know what?
Okay. I'm not saying 70 million. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a hater. I'm just saying 70 million.
Right.
70 million. It's 70 million. All right. Now it's time for the, in the news, we do the good news, the bad news, and the other shit. Today, one of the things we've already managed to get through the Michael Jackson controversy. So now we get to the weekly Trump disaster update. Tick-tock, boom or fizzle. The Mueller report is in. Now, what does it mean? Well, first of all, let me remind you. The Mueller report is in, but not to any of us. That's part of the ongoing controversy and one of the big things to be determined. The Mueller report was turned in from Robert Mueller for the review by Rod Rosenstein and Attorney General Barr. And Attorney General Barr, within 48 hours, which was somewhat shocking to some people, Attorney General Barr released a 4-page summary of what he's going to do. Now, just because I have it right here. It's right in the broadcast. You can go online and get it. And here it is, the 4-page summary that's available for you to get. And so I read it. Now, along with that, and I posted this at the site, I also put the Justice Department's own published summary of the Mueller report and a couple of other features about what they thought the report means. And I watched a number of things last night. After reading it myself and making some extensive notes, those of you who know me know when I get my highlighter and all that. Look at that highlighting.
Oh, man.
Oh,
hell yes. Can't wait to see those yellow marks, right?
Yeah, those yellow marks. I've been on this.
You can't wait.
So, I have my opinions of it, but I want to make sure that I make it clear to everyone that these opinions I have are the opinions of the Attorney General's 4-page summary. It is not the Mueller report. And how much of the Mueller report you get to see is to be determined. And that is falling into a political process. Since it is a 4-page summary, I think it's easy enough for you to take a look and read it yourself. But I think I'll start out by saying this, and I wrote it at the top of the page. We've seen the conclusion. Now we want to see the evidence. In other words, we've seen the conclusion that the Attorney General Barr has come to. Now we want to see the evidence for what he says. Because what happens is it starts out, and I'll quote parts of this. There are parts where he goes into in really increased detail. Let me read. And I quote, "The report explains that the special counsel and his staff thoroughly investigated allegations that members of the presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump and others associated with it conspired with the Russian government in its efforts to interfere in the 2016 U.S. presidential election or sought to obstruct the related federal investigations. In the report, the special counsel noted that in completing his investigation, he employed 19 lawyers who were assisted by a team of approximately 40 FBI agents, intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, and other professional staff. The special counsel issued more than 2,800 subpoenas, executed nearly 500 search warrants, obtained more than 230 orders for communication records, issued almost 50 orders authorizing use of PIN registers, and made 13 requests to foreign governments for evidence, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses. I want you to pay attention that was a detailed summary, right?
Right.
Very detailed summary of the resources used by Mueller. He took the time to list how many FBI agents He listed how many lawyers, how many subpoenas. In the very next paragraph, he says, the special counsel obtained a number of indictments and convictions of individuals and entities in connection with his investigation, all of which have been publicly disclosed.
That's it.
That's it. No listing.
Right.
In other words, the special counsel obtained a number of indictments. Well, why don't we list those? 34 indictments. Yep. How many convictions pled guilty? So no listing of that. Okay? During the course of the investigation, the special counsel also referred several matters to other officers for action. No summary of that. No, they didn't say that the special counsel had referred things to the District of Columbia, to the Northern Virginia, to the Southern District of New York. So no mention of any of that. He refers to that in 2 sentences, whereas when it comes to listing what Mueller used, he finds the time to give express detail.
It's good to be the king, right?
Right. So the other thing, as I've learned, is that they have a special designation within legal documents called the T. And when you see them quote something and they start with a bracketed T,
right,
that means that there is a part to this that occurred previously that is not mentioned here. There is one spot in this specifically that is the bracketed T. And that bracketed T comment is, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activity, quote. So that was a bracketed T, meaning that there was some explanation. So, I started out by saying this, we've seen the conclusion, now we want to see the evidence. We want to see Barr publicly acknowledge the number of indictments and convictions of individuals in connection with the investigation. Also, we want to publicly acknowledge the referral of this other matters legal officers for further action. Also, while it says the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump conspired, we want to hear the evidence that was evaluated. That we looked at XYZ, but we couldn't come to a full conclusion. Maybe the president was considered a stupid collaborator, where he didn't actually collude, but he was so stupid
just ignorant
that he just gave away information that was top secret, which we already have proof of. At least we know of those instances. So what we want to actually see is what Mueller's findings were, not the conclusion that was put forth by the Attorney General. The Attorney General also goes out of the way to say that because Mueller did not come to that conclusion, it was up to him to come to that conclusion, and this is the conclusion which he has done, which is in direct conflict to me. Well, let's put it like this. It puts him in a system where he should have recused himself, since he has a previous memorandum, which you can search. It's 19 pages. He has a previous memorandum he wrote on his own, just out of his own, to the president about how he should resist the Mueller investigation. You can go get that. I got that. It's 19 pages. You can go get that yourself. So, you don't have the Mueller report, you all. What you have is the Attorney General's document, which is, to me, going to later on be used as a proof as to how he collaborated with the president to understate the facts. Okay? So now we get to see. Thank God for the Democratic House, which is now going to pull Mueller in. They say they're going to subpoena everybody.
Okay, I have no jokes here. You know I'm staying away, because this is very important for everybody to know that administrations, up until current, never abuse power. The only time it happened is in the last couple of years.
No, the administrations actually do abuse power.
Yeah.
I think one of the last things that happened was even in the Obama administration, if I remember correctly, where there was something where they agreed on the presidential powers, but the Supreme Court came back and said, no, you can't even agree on that.
Right.
You don't even get to say that the president gets to have these additional powers.
Right.
You don't get to say that. You just have to do it the old-fashioned way, where he comes back to you every time.
Yeah.
So this has happened.
Yes.
So I don't have that right in front of me, but I can get that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I've said all along, I said what the previous administration did, just put the bullhorns on this current administration to say, okay, I'm not saying they use this language. I'm saying they say, oh, fuck it, it's all on now. That's to me what they did. And they said, you guys get no mercy. We're coming at you because of the previous administration, which for whatever reason had this thing where people were just so uncomfortable with the chieftain, the POTUS, as you went. And I said, hey, I want you guys to get in a good idea that, it takes some big cojones to be the president. I said, I'm just letting you know, it's not all glory the way you
ladies got to grow.
Look, man, I'm only saying, I don't live in this shell where they say, oh, Allah. I said, no. And I don't mean Allah like that. A la carte. Okay, don't get it twisted. So, no, man. To me, I'm going, the thing that you're getting the lesson on to me is how much power, even if you're in a territory where it's kind of the gray line where they say it's somewhat illegal. It's ignorance. Can you be ignorant and illegal? Yeah, but wonder if you're the president of the United States. Can you be ignorant and go, oh, I'm the president. Law is made here. And I can defer anything that deals with me until after I serve my term. I said, I want you guys to understand to me what that means. That's an example of something that existed way before Trump. Okay, that's just me.
Well, it is an example, and it's an ongoing saga, and there are many ongoing sagas, and we get to see because they're being revealed to us as we go along. Right now, the Trump machinery is touting this as a victory.
Of course they are. Saying
that he had total exoneration, which it is not. We're still waiting for the Mueller report. Because of this 4-page summary, now the doubt is really in about how much of the actual report will be revealed. And so the House is moving into action on their own to make sure that it will be brought forth so they can indict individuals and have them come and testify. And so it actually is yet to be seen. So stay tuned. You don't have the Mueller report. You have the Attorney General's 4-page summary of the report.
Right.
Remember that. So take a deep breath and remember that. And you need to see why. Again, we have the conclusion. Now we want to see the evidence. Finally, as part of my Trump update, I remind individuals that the ongoing investigations, for example, in the Southern District of New York, continue to focus on the president's finances. One of the predictions that I made is that the president's finances would be unraveled in front of everyone, in fact, revealed to be the gangster, mob-like setup that it is. This is to come. And while the president may be free from indictment, that doesn't stop his son and others from going down. This is what you're going to see. Yeah. As they head forward to what they think is a 2020 election, right. You're going to watch the president's machinery get unwound. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that you have yet to see, and also whether or not the president will continue to obstruct justice, and whose peer view that is. Because obstruction of justice in these issues was not part of the Mueller report. This will be handled separately.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. You remember the run up to the Republican nomination? You remember all those wonderful folks on the Republican end who were basically hollering and screaming against Donald Trump?
Yeah. Lock him up.
Was that fake campaign? You know, fake campaigning, because all of a sudden now everybody's kumbaya. So I'm just trying to figure this out.
Determined.
Is that fake campaigning? I'm just, you know, it's, you know, Mario, I just figured this. If I call you, you can't talk to about my father like that. I'll bitch slap you. You don't say those things. And then all of a sudden you're going over here and says, well, America. And I'll say, wait a minute, you're standing next to the man that talked about your father. Fake campaign, right?
Kylie Jenner can do it.
I'm not mad. If you can pull it off, I ain't mad at you.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the good news. Bad news.